Hi. This week's theme, and it was actually really exciting this week because there was a real aspect of being able to see it. And I find that seeing it, because in seeing very often what we look for is evidence, and if we're looking for good, we find evidence for good, and if we look for bad, we find evidence for bad in all circumstances with people or things. So actually seeing is very important because in seeing we digest, and there's quite a progression this week in the seeing, and we are so other orientated, and people are basically good. I find people are amazing, and it's quite extraordinary. There isn't anyone that isn't if you really have a good look, which via the process that we've learned to use, it goes with great compassion in their compassion to be able to see themselves. And in seeing, that's part of it, but a large part also is when you see it, claim it, because if you don't claim the perspective that you see as something that's yours and you claim it, there's something so strong in claiming it, and in claiming it you can progress from there. So we've been talking a bit about the shadow side, and people are basically good, but being good and being other orientated, there are people who have a glass full, and there are people who take a straw, put it in your glass and suck from it. And that's okay. There are times when there's plenty of that, but when it's assumed and supposed, and you're not okay if I can't put my straw in you and suck from you, there's a need to see, rather than go to that part of yourself, which I've done myself and wasn't good. You keep challenging yourself on a level of capacity to give regardless. And that is now showing up as not okay anymore, and in fact destructive. And much as many processes are crumbling down, that process is also necessarily crumbling down. And we can kind of see it with the backlash of wokeness. There's quite a backlash, and I hope it doesn't backlash too far, but there is a backlash that is healthy in that process. Because people will rely on the wokeness and put the straw in you to suck from you, to make them okay. It's their process to make whatever it is okay. We all have the process of whatever it is, stand in it, claim it, see it, and hold that space until it's seen differently. I'll share a little bit later that actually reflects that. So the week pretty much started off with that shadow side in terms of having it show up. But for some people, when the shadow side shows, the rejection says, that's not me, I can't digest it. But when it's an important ingredient for your progression, all sorts of reactions can happen in the physical body, in the breathing, in pain in your body. And it was really interesting to see that in really saying, I don't need to digest what's going on for another person, or I digest the clarity of what I'm feeling right now and I'm going to express it. Both were very necessary in claiming a part of themselves for themselves and having other people to sort out their process. Remember that session of not my baby? It's so important to know what's not your responsibility to actually carry or be concerned or intuit into. We're all increasing our intuition, but to use it in relation to others and then do that process of making it okay for others can very often enter into enabling, and that enabling will cost you because you're doing the enabling. So that was the beginning of the week. And in terms of that seeing, what I saw once, and I've never been able to find it again, and I loved it. So what I saw, and I can't find again, was this amazing process of the planetary system, one lining up under the other. And what it showed was that each was actually an eye. It was like through this process, seeing took place, and all of that connects to our eye looking into the world. So our seeing nourishes and informs all the way back up. Now, one being that I saw was in the process of saying, what's the use of my, where's the motivation, what's the use of my seeing? A very deep thinker, awesome writer. Our thoughts are like bricks. Our words can create all going forward, whether we say yes or no, depending on how we see it. But can you imagine if Socrates said, why do I bother seeing it the way I see it? Or Aristotle, why do I bother seeing the way I see it? Yeah? Or Muhammad, or Jesus, or Mary, or whoever you have an alignment with. They were unique to themselves, and they had a form of seeing that still energetically has an influence in our world still. So how we see our words, our thoughts, what we write are very profound. And those who are doing kinesiology, you know that when you do a session with someone, it isn't just the energy of that being. I mean, that's why I share these, because there's a larger theme where we're all taking part in. But as an individual, it's not just that individual, it's the whole, but it's all those who come in contact with. And that's an ongoing process. So every moment, every thought, every word, every written piece has a profound effect. And if you see it, I think it becomes more of a claiming, and our life becomes more potent and alive in it. So sometimes we can be so in our head that, and I found this especially with couples, and in relationship, what can often happen is that one lives in this sphere and another lives in this sphere. And you end up waiting for the other. There's this enormous waiting, or not making the first move, or waiting for the other to make the move so I can move. And there's no movement in that. And quite often what happens is the body itself stops movement. And when the body stops movement, it's harder to actually move, and we end up in a stillness that is not really a good stillness. It can be, it's a silence, and stillness is profound. But when it's a stillness like this, it's like the stillness of death. So what was found in the couples, that it's necessary to really, if possible, sit at the round table and really do the I feel, I see messages. and hope that there's hearing. Now, if there is no hearing, because some relationships there is no hearing, it doesn't mean that the relationship is doomed. It means someone has to make a move. And it can be that one starts to live their life more fully. They start to be active in their own life, and very often seeing that can then bring in the other. Not because that's why you're doing it, but just by doing it, it activates and it can move the other. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's important to see it and not to deaden oneself with that silence and non-movement. So activity in the body moves an enormous amount of things. That's, when you think about it, a lot of the CEOs go and exercise before they go to work because they embody themselves. So I'm looking at the list that sort of itemises the themes that were happening. We can enable to such an extent, and I've actually done this, enable to such an extent that all of a sudden you see it and it stops. And in hindsight, you cannot believe the extent you went to in care for another from a good place, when in fact you become the baddie and you're the giver. And when you see it, it stops. So seeing is very important, because seeing can either start, but it's also powerful that when you see it, it stops. And it becomes incredibly clear, and the world changes. And everything in you becomes clear. Because in those circumstances, the giver can become angry because the other person is making you bad. And then you end up feeling angry. It's quite an interesting little loop we can get ourselves into. Again, seeing it is very important. So the week concluded, and it was such a delight how it concluded. We all have times when we white knuckle it. And in white knuckling, we can actually call ourselves a victim, or we can grow extraordinarily. But this being was white knuckling, and with the white knuckling, it got stuck into more white knuckling. But the spirit aspect of herself was actually saying, oh my God, I love this. Look at this. I don't ever want to give this process that I have the capacity to do. I can see I can do that, and I actually love it. What needed to be seen was, and I love this. So what showed up was, if you can imagine a bucket. There's a bucket. And when we white knuckle, and white knuckling sometimes can be sitting in deep depression until we find a value. It takes a lot of white knuckling to not bypass the depression, to press until we find the value, and then all is renewed. But this white knuckling, and I've seen this in a few people, where they're at the bottom of the bucket and they rub it and 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 rub it, and then all of a sudden there's a hole. And once you go through the hole, you can't find the bottom of the bucket anymore. And this knuckling that was going on had long ago gone through the bucket. But still knuckling it, the depth that was being achieved was quite extraordinary. And in seeing it, it showed that this being was not in the bucket anymore. this being is outside of the bucket. And once you're outside of the bucket, you really are in your own world. You're not in a bucket anymore. And then what was really gorgeous was, and it kept it off beautifully, the last being that I saw sat down and was very powerful in expressing all the things that had happened over between the last time when I saw her. And I'm sitting back and all of it was really positive. And in hearing it, I heard no emotion, no victimization, no upsetness, just the storytelling of circumstances. And it was like, can you hear that you're actually on top of it? And when you're on top of it and you can see it, you're out of the bucket. It's time to be out of the bucket. And when you're out of the bucket, there is an effortlessness that arrives because the seeing is so good that you can see it and you're on top of it, and then whatever it is, it resolves or sees itself or gets put right. It's all in the seeing. But once you can see you're on top of it, and ease arrives, because there actually isn't anything we can't deal with. There isn't anything we can't deal with. And the seeing of it and then the claiming of it is an incredible freedom. And the card that came this week is surrender. Because when you're out of the bucket, surrender brings an ease of all coming to you and addressing each thing as it comes along. And in the seeing of it, this surrender just knows all will be taken care of. Surrender to the highest force of your being. I'll say that again. Surrender to the highest force of your being and expect that which is always for your highest purpose. Let go and live. You do not always need to control the direction. Simply surrender to the energy of all. You need not use your logical mind to create miracles. Only know that the answer to a question comes when you let go the need to have that answer. Now, I want to share this other piece. I've had it here for a while and I didn't know when it was going to be appropriate to share. But since we're now out of the bucket, I think it's appropriate. And this is what Rudolf Steiner wrote more than a century ago. And he saw it then, but it's definitely alive and well now. So Rudolf Steiner. The stars spoke to man. It is world destiny that they are silent now. To be aware of the silence can become pain for earthly man. But in the deepening silence, there grows and ripens what man speaks to the stars. Pretty good. We are in those times. And the yoga teacher actually had explained how this moon is the moon of silence. Surrender, silence. Awesome. Lots of love.